Welcome to a special Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist, and this is the Let's Go Crazy Grammy Salute to Prince spoiler review. This will contain spoilers, so if you have not seen the show, if it shows up on your cable or satellite's video on demand, or if clips show up on YouTube, probably by today or at some point, definitely check those out. Watch the program, then come back here and listen to this program. All right, so let's dive right on in. And this has been recorded about a good 47 minutes after the end of the program. And I'm going to say I had a lot more fun watching this than I anticipated. Of course, you've heard me say on past episodes that I am not a huge fan of tribute shows, especially like televised tribute shows, tribute albums. Not a huge fan of those. But when it comes to the Grammys, I haven't had a chance to check out that many. I did watch the Beatles all the way through their Grammy tribute. I've seen some of Stevie Wonder's Grammy tribute. And, like I said, there's moments that are more enjoyable than others. There may be performers that I'm not familiar with, doing renditions of songs or classic songs by said artist. And again, it's kind of hit or miss for me. Some do better than others. Some I enjoy more than others. And this program was definitely no exception. But like I said, I did have a lot more fun watching it than I originally planned. So just I took a bunch of notes as each artist was performing, or if there was someone kind of, in the case of Alicia Keys, recounting a story and introducing the next act. So I tried to take as many notes as I could. So we're going to start off with, of course, Maya Rudolph kicked off the show with her introduction, and that was pretty good. Now, I thought that she would pretty much host the rest of the show. I know there was no host or designated host other than that Sheila E. was the musical director. But yeah, I didn't think that there was a host that was going to be there from beginning to end. But it would have been nice if, say, she was able to host the show from beginning to end. But she did turn up enough later on. We'll get to her performance with the Revolution as well a little bit later. But it immediately goes with her introducing her and Gary Clark doing their rendition of Let's Go Crazy. And I enjoyed it. It was a good way to kick the show off. Good, party dance song, kind of to keep the mood and the festivities light. So I did enjoy that a lot. With her, like I said, I'm not familiar with her music. But from things I've seen, she can sing. She does very well with the guitar. And also on the pianos we saw later with the Beautiful Ones performance. But this is definitely somebody that pretty much after this I'm going to start looking up a lot of her albums and checking those out. And I know she's won some Grammys this year as well, if I'm not mistaken. So this is definitely somebody, just based on her interpretations of Prince songs, she did a pretty good job. Pretty skilled on the guitar. Gary Clark Jr., definitely very exceptional on guitar. And if this is someone that you're not familiar with, I would recommend you go and listen to any one of his albums. He has quite a few. So go on your Tidal, Spotify, iTunes. Definitely check this guy out. To me, the guitar is incapable hands. It's in very good hands with Gary Clark Jr. He's keeping the tradition of real music, real musicianship, does a lot of blues, does a lot of rock, can be very soulful, can be very funky as well, but mainly kind of blues, rock, heavy. By all means, definitely check him out. But yeah, like I said, they did a pretty good job with Let's Go Crazy. So I enjoyed that a lot. And then after that, there was Miguel doing I Would Die For You. Really great voice. As far as the current state of R&B, I don't know, starting probably last 10, 15 years or so, it's taken this weird turn where it's become not necessarily R&B, but it's become this sort of hip hop hybrid, so to speak. And we also live in an age where it's the age of the producer. So the producer with the hot tracks at the moment, count on 5 to 10 of your favorite contemporary artists having the same production style, with a certain artist. So it's hard to kind of look at things objectively from that point of view. But when you put someone like Miguel in a setting such as this and having him interpret another artist's material, especially a classic artist in this case, I think he did a pretty good job. Great voice. Wasn't too keen on the dance choreography. It was cool that the band, was Sheila E.'s band, they kind of threw in, the arrangement of the 12-inch version of I Would Die For You, that sort of quasi-live version of it. They threw that into the performance, and that was a good way to keep it fresh and, again, keep it festive. Because, I Would Die For You is a pretty heavy song, and he started off with it kind of being like a slow ballad, but then it picks up back into the original version of it. Then it segues into this 12-inch version. And I thought that was a pretty good touch. Like I said, pretty great voice. Didn't really try to imitate Prince besides the outfit, but we're here just for the music part of it. We'll leave the outfit alone. But it was pretty good. Probably not the best performance of the night, but as far as that kind of 1-2 opener, to me, this program was sort of a build. It's like, but it started off strong, and Miguel kind of kept that level of consistency. Like I said, it wasn't the best performance of the night for me, but as far as that slow build where it starts strong, he kept it strong. And then we get John Legend. So I didn't know what song he was going to do at first. So when that sort of opening notes to the recent remix version of Nothing Compares to You, those opening beats started kicking in, then I was like, okay, well, let's see what he does with this. And this one was kind of the first, besides the musicianship of her and Gary Clark Jr., this one with John Legend to me was the one that was the vocal, or one of the vocal standouts for the night. Because, he literally took that to church. And, of course, all over Twitter, there's this thing of, where's his shirt? It's like you're going to do a classic song in the eyes and ears of millions, no matter how you were introduced to that song. And like you said, it was given to different people at different times, but it always came back to him. And to me, of all the times we've seen this brother with the shirt and the tie, this is the one time you needed the shirt and the tie. It's like, don't try. And that's the thing. The big takeaway from all of this, and everyone that has done it, that has tried to wear a ruffled shirt or lace outfit or replica of some, outfit that, was in a classic video, you just don't outdo Prince. You just kind of show up like, like the Revolution. They showed up, they dressed as themselves, they were the Revolution. And, it was just about the music. We know who you're there for. But, the thing is with all the, because it just comes off as kind of pale imitation. So, I mean, John, you should have just been yourself. And, even though the singing kind of took away from a lot of that, you brought it home, you took it to church, and I want to see the single on that drop at some point. Definitely release that version. But also, too, was, and a lot of listeners of Amari Purple Talk that are in the know, let me know if that's Eddie M on the sax. Let me know if she retained his services for her band, or, just let me know if that was him. Because it was like that kind of was reminiscent of his sax sound. So that was my question for the night. If that was Eddie M, it was cool to see him back into the fold and bringing it. I mean, it would have been nice to see Eric Leeds too, to kind of bring that. But, there's a lot of maybe some people were available, others weren't. But, and then too, there's a lot of politics. We won't get into too much of that, but it is sort of almost the elephant in the room when it comes to this program. So anyway, so John Legend, he brought it. It was cool to see or to hear Jimmy Jam do the narration. Now, I know he's big within the Grammy committee, so he was very instrumental from things that I've heard as far as fighting to get the Revolution in that spot on the show. But, to have him do the narration of Prince's life and career with the different video montages representing, after each commercial break, to me, that was very fitting. So that was nice that, Jam was in the position to do that. And then we move on to the performance by St. Vincent. Now, again, this is another artist that I'm not familiar with. So if there are listeners of Amari Purple Talk that are out there, if you can recommend an album, I don't know how many she has. I'll probably check it out later myself. But if anybody that's a fan, of this artist, and her as well, recommend me some hits, recommend me some deep tracks, depending on how many albums they have out thus far, recommend your favorite, recommend the best, let me know because I want to check this out. But wasn't familiar with this artist. Now, to me, she wasn't the strongest guitar player and not the best personality wise to interpret a song as heavy as Controversy. I can't think of anybody offhand that you would get to do it. But to me, it wasn't the strongest performance. She wasn't the strongest musician, but at least as a guitar player, she played to her strength. Meaning that, it's like it didn't have, I don't know, maybe the right pedals, the right amps, I don't know, maybe it wasn't tone, the tonality wasn't just there for some reason. It could be the make, the model, the guitar neck. I don't know. It could be just about anything. But like I said, it wasn't the strongest guitar player. But like I said, she played to her strength on that. And it was just kind of for me, okay, yeah, we get it. Let's now move on to the next one. So that was it for me. And then we come to another artist. Again, I'm not familiar with, and I guess if I'm saying this right, Yanez or Juanez. But his interpretation of 1999, there's really no wrong way to do that song unless you just take it totally left field like Prince did when he came out with that remake of it back in 1999. But I mean, as far as you doing it note for note per the original, there's really no way you can go wrong with that song. But again, it just, to me, like I said, I'm not familiar with this artist, so I'm not familiar with his natural element or what his actual style of music is, and if he shines better with his own originals, because some people are like that. I know I'm kind of like that. I do better with my own stuff than, there's some things that I can play very well, as far as other, covers and stuff. And then there's just some things I'm just lost, I'm like caught in tall grass, really. So, but, when it comes to my stuff, then it's like, okay, well, I know where to hit that snare on the drum machine and make it pop, or, I know which direction I'm going bass wise or something. So I kind of got that feeling where it's like, okay, well, I don't know what his strengths are. To me, this was one of those, if this was aiming it at a certain demographic and guaranteeing that demographic to come in, then I get it. But I mean, it was a great job. I wasn't really impressed with it, but like I said, there's no wrong way to do 1999, and I guess they did all right with that one. But let's move on. So we've got the next performance, which was her with Misty Copeland doing the ballet interpretation of The Beautiful Ones. I like this performance a lot. Covering Prince songs, just like, say, covering Stevie Wonder songs, are the hardest thing to do. It's like, it's almost like cooking rice. A lot of people can cook rice, few do it well. And in this particular case, I think with her, I enjoyed this performance even more than the Let's Go Crazy performance. And I did enjoy the Let's Go Crazy performance. But with The Beautiful Ones, this was a very nice interpretation of it. I mean, she pulled it off. Again, like I said, I don't know what her natural element is. But like I said, I've seen instances where she can play. And it was like, to see her on piano, I was like, oh, she can play piano and keyboards as well. But yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, I'll have to check out her music and her natural element. But very nice voice, very talented instrumentalist. It was cool seeing Misty Copeland up there again. Prince was very instrumental in giving her exposure, because there's, not a lot of black ballet dancers. And I mean, it's been a stigma for decades where, the overall world of ballet doesn't really recognize a lot of black ballet dancers. So it's really great to, Prince was instrumental in giving her a platform, and she managed to springboard off of that platform and to be placed in a lot of positions where there's not a lot of us that are represented. And she's that representation, and she's kicked open that door. So that'll allow young girls to see, young black girls to see this is somebody that made it. And then they can grow up and shine, or even shine even further. And, take the baton and carry it even further. So it was great to see her back on a network television platform. So hopefully more people will, that are into ballet know who she is. If there's a lot of youngsters that are into music and dance as well, then, that's a good role model to have. So, but like I said, I enjoyed the performance. That was a great interpretation of The Beautiful Ones. And let's see, now Alicia Keys came out. I was hoping she would have performed, That would have been nice to have her do How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore, or, whatever song, that would have been given. So that was kind of a bit of a letdown that she didn't perform. Just had her come out and introduce the new act, or the next act, which was the Sheila E. Usher and the FKA Twigs doing a medley of Little Red Corvette, When Doves Cry, and Kiss. Now, was this just a re-showing of that performance from the actual Grammy Awards performance? Did they redo this performance for this night as well? I mean, I couldn't tell the difference. And like I said, if you've heard my reaction about the actual Grammy performance, the Grammy Awards performance, I, like a lot of other people, weren't that, just wasn't that into it. And it's nothing against Usher. But again, it's one of those things. In his natural element, if he's up there singing his hits and dance interpreting his hits, then it's on point. But again, you're not going to out Prince on Let's Go Crazy, When Doves Cry, or Kiss. Like I said, voice-wise, it was okay. Performance-wise, as far as the dancing and all of that, we've seen a lot better from Usher. And like I said, I don't know if it was a timing issue. You've got more time to prepare for your tour. Then it's like, okay, you're going to be on the Grammys. Okay, you're going to do a medley of Prince. Okay, and you're going to come up with some choreography. Go. So I'm sure, given the challenge of having to come up with something. But yeah, like I said, I was a little disappointed that especially if it was a rehash or a re-showing of the Grammy Awards performance and not sort of take two for the night that this was taped. And again, we have, moving on, we have Misty Copeland coming back on and recounting, her gratefulness for Prince giving her the platform to be in the position that she's in. So, and then she introduces Chris Martin and Susanna Hoffs. Chris Martin is from Coldplay. Susanna is from the Bangles. And they were doing Manic Monday because Prince wrote that, gave it to the Bangles. They took it to the top 5. I think it was kept from being number 2 because Kiss was number 1 in that. But it was a top 5, pop hit for them. So, but the Chris Martin and Susanna Hoffs duet version of this, it was a beautiful arrangement of it. Kind of had some shades of Sometimes It Snows in April. Kind of had that vibe to it. But one of my takeaways was, it's one of those situations to me in certain segments of that song that Chris Martin felt like he was caught in tall grass a little bit. Because it was that, just another manic Monday. And then he's like, oh, it's like, well, wait a minute. That didn't quite hit. And I think he realized that by going too deep. And then by the time the chorus comes back around, then he's kind of singing it more in his natural voice. But it's still, to me, it wasn't necessary. If you were going to do that, then having actual background singers would have made that more effective. Because it's like, you're singing the chorus, and then if you know the record, you've heard it, both the Prince demo and you've heard, the actual Bangles record. And that, there's the lead singing on top, but then there's the background vocals that are almost simultaneous with that. But, that's, Prince and Jill Jones and Brenda Bennett, they're coming in with the, they're doing that. So the lead singer has time to catch their breath. It's just another manic Monday, catch your breath. I don't have to run, like that. So I think that's where he kind of tripped himself up to me, was trying to do both lead and background simultaneously. And I think by the end of the song, he kind of realized, I just need to give it up. And to me, that prevented this from being a very flawless performance for me. Because otherwise, I enjoyed the arrangement, I enjoyed the harmonies of it. It's just that those oohs just took me out of the song. It's just like I'm now criticizing it because I'm now distracted by him doing both chorus and background simultaneously and realizing he shouldn't have done it. But anyway, let's move on to actually what is, of course, and Amari Purple Talk listeners know, of course, this will be my favorite segment. And this is the reason, or one of the reasons, why I tuned in. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, the time. And again, they brought it. It was the original 6. I wish it was the original 7. For whatever reason, Jesse couldn't make it. It didn't, doesn't sound like anything bitter was going on. I don't know, could have been health, could have been scheduling, could have been a number of things, that, actual good reasons for him not to attend, and not just some, bitterness or, infighting or anything like that. But I think if he was in the position to have shown up, he would have. And that would have been an extra bonus for me. That would have been the bonus. But hey, 6 out of 7 ain't bad. And then, you got Tory Ruffin filling in, and which he does with the touring unit of the time. And, he's done a fantastic job filling in the Jesse role. He's a really great guitar player. And they were still tight as a band. To me, they practically almost stole the show for me. And I'm not saying that just to be biased, because I'm a huge Time fan, but, it's just, you had the original 6 members, and, when you get the originals together, they bring it. They definitely bring it. But yeah, and of course the song selection was perfect. Of course, the obvious Jungle Love, The Bird, Cool, just for the R&B set, to get that representation in there. That was, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was good seeing, Jerome in the fold as well. So, that was a good highlight. That was, like I said, that was one of the main reasons I tuned in the first place. Because it's like, okay, well, cool. They did right by Prince by having them represent on the show. And then from there, we go to the Foo Fighters doing Darling Nikki. And I like Dave Grohl's explanation that, hey, they did a cover of this once, played it for Prince. Prince was like, and they hadn't done it since. And here we are, the year 2020, and they bring it. It's good. The original is heavy, because you got the Lynn drum machine in there as well as Prince's drumming, acoustic set drumming as well. But when you kind of put it in that just total rock context, it kind of gives it a bit more heaviness. You could picture a band of that caliber covering that, or almost any real rock band covering that, and not getting laughed out of the building. So I don't know, maybe they'll get to cover that at some point. Who knows? Depending on how much reaction that social media gives. I enjoyed it. I've always liked the Foo Fighters. They're one of those groups where I like them and I enjoy them, but it's something. I don't have any of their CDs. I don't have any of their albums, but that's something I may have to, I probably have to rectify that at some point. But yeah, that was a pretty good job with the Foo Fighters. And then we get to Earth, Wind, and Fire. And they did Adore. Now, to me, Adore is a hard song to pull off live. I've either seen Prince do it live, or I've watched video of him performing it live. And there's very few times where he's done the song all the way through. Probably my favorite live rendition is just him on the piano, which you will hear on the One Night Alone live set when that drops on May 29th. But that as a studio masterpiece, it's flawless. So it's like it's like the Beatles in 1966, with Revolver. It's like it's too good that you just can't duplicate that live. It's like he put so many voices of his on there for the backing. I don't know where he would. I don't know where he recorded that one. Of course, we'll get the answers to this in Dwayne Tudhall's book regarding Prince's sessions from 1985 to 1986. So the Parade era sessions. So, like I said, I don't know if that was done at his home studio or what, and that makes a huge difference too. Sometimes that rawness, it's not done in a really, really polished studio or anything. Or I don't know if Paisley Park was finished at that point. I can't remember, but like I said, kind of digressing. But it's a hard song to pull off live, and sometimes, even with Prince, it was kind of hard to pull off live. But Earth, Wind, and Fire brought it to me. There were places in the song where they made it their own because it's like it's Earth, Wind, and Fire, and they're going to sound like Earth, Wind, and Fire. I wish that Maurice White would have been around and have his voice kind of there in the harmonies. I think that would have taken it to another level, definitely. But Philip Bailey, hey, he's getting up there, and it's not the 1975 Gratitude live rendition of Reasons, but man, the voice is still there. The voice is definitely still there. And again, you play to your strengths. You get older, your keys change, so you have to kind of sing in a lower key or a different key or whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed it. That was, it went from being when Prince's sort of inspirations for that song, where he says he was listening to a lot of Luther Vandross and a lot of Patti LaBelle. And then if you kind of go back to around 1985, 1986, and the songs that they were doing, you can drop Adore right in there and it holds its own extremely well. But again, when you've got Earth, Wind, and Fire doing it, like I said, they put their stamp on it, definitely, especially in a lot of places in the song. So I enjoyed that one. And then we get to Common with Sheila E. doing Sign of the Times. And this was, I was going to say this was my least favorite performance. Yeah, and I'll use that because of the word favorite. It's my least favorite performance. Now, the artists that I'm not familiar with, the St. Vincent's and the Yanez or the Winez or however you say it, like I said, I'm just not familiar with their music. So, like I said, my level of excitement was sort of waning a bit as, they were going on. But to me, this was my least favorite. For me personally, I would have preferred, that's if they were available, but I would have preferred the Roots and Common doing this one other than Sheila E. Now, I get it that, she was part of the Sign of the Times, Love Sexy band. So, of course, it's natural and fitting that she represents. But you know what would have really been cool would have been, instead of just her band, if she was able to bring in the Sign of the Times Love Sexy band to represent. Now, there's a lot we'll get into a little bit later, and that'll be regarding, just some of the more dislikes or different opinions I might have about the show. But but getting back, like I said, to me, I think the roots in common as far as what the song, the song Sign of the Times itself represents. And I think that just would have been a heavier context if they were brought in on it. Yeah, but Common, I enjoy a lot of his records a lot. So, like I said, it was good. He kind of put the little rap into it, and that was cool. And then we're going to move on to Beck's interpretation of Raspberry Beret. Again, it was a nice arrangement. Wasn't, my excitement level wasn't as high, especially after you're coming off of The Time, you're coming off the Foo Fighters, and you're coming off of Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was like, it didn't rank up there with those for me, but the arrangement was nice. And then in places, to me, I could almost hear Fleetwood Mac doing this. I don't know why, but I don't know. It's kind of that same weird thought that for a lot of years with Prince's Elephants and Flowers, I always wished in the back of my mind that David Bowie had a chance to cover that at some point, because I could just hear his voice doing that. And for this, I don't know, for some reason, I hear Fleetwood Mac doing it. Like, it would be a different interpretation, where Prince's version, much to his chagrin, and lack of a better description, is very Beatlesque. But if you put that song in the hands of, say, Fleetwood Mac, it would just take it to a different place to me. I don't know, but that's just a random thought as that was sort of playing. Kind of like if you remember the Prince interview on Arsenio, where it was like, I'm sitting there, I'm just rewriting the song. Or in this case, I'm rearranging the song, like recasting it. Like, yeah, okay, Beck's cool. Let's see Fleetwood Mac do this one, though. But yeah, it was cool. Just a nice arrangement of it. So now we're going to move back to Gary Clark Jr. and his interpretation of The Cross, which was, pretty nice, note for note version of it. And like I said, the guitar is in very good hands with Gary Clark. So, I'll get to some of the takeaways in a little bit, but he did a pretty damn good job on the guitar. Not guitar, guitar. So that was a nice performance. I enjoyed that one. And then we have Fred Armisen come out. If those of you, if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and look up Saturday Night Live, like old Saturday Night Live, the Prince show, where Fred Armisen, he's Prince, and Maya Rudolph is Beyonce. Check those segments out if you have not seen them. If you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about. And to me, they were pretty funny. But, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But he comes out, he introduces Sheila E., and then she does a medley of America, Free, and The Glamorous Life. And of course, she puts on a show. If you haven't seen her perform live back during the sort of Purple Rain tour era, or in support of the Romance 1600 album, there was a video that was shot, and it was originally sold on VHS, and it was shot at the Warfield in San Francisco. I don't know, but they should. I don't know, should put that out on DVD one day. But that was most notable, for the Love Bazaar performance. With Prince and the Revolution coming out, and kind of ending the show on that note. So, so yes, I mean she's can hold it down on the stage, and fantastic musician. So that was good. I mean, it kind of after sort of again sort of the kind of I don't know I can't say the low point, but you have something like as heavy as the cross, and then this kind of puts things back into party mode. So like I said, put on a show. Pretty good song selection. I mean, you can't go wrong with the Glamorous Life. It would have been cool to hear Love Bazaar in there instead of didn't have to necessarily do America or do Free. But yeah, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. And then we have Saving the Best for Last. So there was a lot of stuff that kind of within the last week leading up to this show. I mean, we knew when it was taped. Eventually we found out when the show was going to be aired, and then it was just sort of a thing of oh, it represents the 80s too much, or there's not enough musicology in there, there's not enough this or that. I mean, it was kind of within the montages a little bit, but it wasn't like a documentary, so to speak, where you can kind of really go in depth with that. And of course, you obviously didn't get songs. I mean, you could have put at least one. There was room for one in there representing a later era, but that's me being a little bit nitpicky about it. But there was a lot of stuff going on, like I said, and just really just trying to enjoy it on that level, or not enjoy it on that level. And then all this other stuff started popping up, and we're hearing that Sheila E. didn't want the revolution there, and Jimmy Jam was instrumental in getting the revolution onto the show. And I'm seeing stuff where Susanna has a clip of them doing Mountains, and that was cut from the show, which I'm assuming it was cut for time. I don't think it was any malice. But then you start seeing the advertisements or the commercials for it, and then it's the camera's always zooming in on Sheila E. And then there's you don't really get, you see the time, you see the revolution, but their names aren't even mentioned. It's like, oh, here's Gary Clark Jr., here's so and so, here's so and so, and here's Sheila E. So then there's all this, like I said, this drama. But in the context of the show itself, having things cut the way that they were to fit everything in a 2-hour show, and where they were placed, because my original thought, and I was thinking this all the way up until they actually popped up on the stage, I was thinking, like, why couldn't the Revolution have been the sort of house band? Because all of these songs, musically, who would be in a better position to interpret that instrumentally than the Revolution? I mean, you're talking like 80 to 90% of the song choices are pretty much near Revolution era Prince, so that was my thought sitting there from the beginning of the show all the way through. Now, nothing against Sheila E.'s band, but I mean, it's, I guess, her, one of her brothers, and Eddie M, I guess, they're qualified to kind of represent, and again, like I said, maybe it's this thing of, okay, Sheila, you're musical director, we're going to tape it on this day, go. And again, maybe because of scheduling, I don't know what the NPG's schedule was, Or, well, of course, they got the Revolution onto the show. So, I mean, again, this was what I was thinking throughout. However, once they hit the stage, and now we're at the end of the program, and I'm like, okay, well, they saved kind of the best for last. You getting it capped off. And again, we're back in party mode because we've had Sheila do the Glamorous Life. And now we've got the Revolution popping up, and it's with the Prince tribute band, probably my favorite Prince tribute band, Princess, and they're doing Delirious. And I had fun. I had fun. I saw them. I don't know. It's floating on YouTube, and I forget the year it was, but I thought I didn't know what this was. It was them performing. They were doing Darling Nikki, and I'm like, what is this? And then I guess I'm reading, in the whatever the description in YouTube, that Maya Rudolph actually has this tribute band. It's her and her friend Gretchen, and they do shows here and there, and they do Prince songs, and they do them really well. And I really thought that their interpretation of it was really great. So, in later years, and especially since April 21st of 2016, they were D'Angelo's background vocalist from the Jimmy Fallon episode where they were D'Angelo was doing a tribute to Prince, singing "Sometimes It Snows in April," and they were the background voices. And they've popped up at different events. I think different celebrations here and there representing. And this was a good platform for them as well. Like I said, I've always enjoyed Maya Rudolph from Saturday Night Live. Those of you unaware of her backstory, even beyond Saturday Night Live, she's the daughter of Minnie Riperton. And, but she's talented in her own right. She didn't go into singing as a serious career. She went for comedy, because that was kind of her passion since she was a little kid, was comedy. But she has a pretty good voice in her own right. And like I said, if you ever see her do anything on Saturday Night Live, especially if she's imitating Beyonce or any chance that she gets to show off her singing voice on that show, by all means, definitely check it out. But yeah, like I said, I had definite fun with them doing Delirious on that. That was a perfect song choice for that. And then we cap it all off with Mavis Staples doing Purple Rain. And that was very powerful and a bit moving. It's just, I guess, you really just couldn't pick anyone better than Mavis Staples to do that. That was one of Prince's favorite voices in music. I remember, just kind of borrowing my uncle's, 45s and, a lot of the Stax records, definitely a lot of, Staples singers, from Respect Yourself and I'll Take You There, period. I enjoyed her Paisley Park album. I enjoyed the first one, Time Waits for No One. The voice, I kind of like different aspects of it, but to me, the Time Waits for No One is my favorite, and I hope they reissue that at some point. I still have it on cassette, but yeah, I thought that was very fitting as well to get her to interpret Purple Rain on that. And Wendy, I was like, she's a really great guitar player in her own right, but I think for this particular performance, I think the purple clouds opened up and Prince put his finger and said, hey, go, make that solo happen. And that was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So that is the show in a nutshell. Like I said, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Now, again, this is a tribute special, and again, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of tributes. And of course, with any of these things, there's always some things you want you could do better, or you would have preferred to see more than other things. But I'll start off with this: is that I get it for what it was, and especially network television. Now, if this was something that was being filmed at Paisley Park and it was going to be shown on Netflix, or it was going to be shown on HBO, or, a special Blu-ray, set, DVD, then in that particular case, then you get as many people in the Prince musical singularity that you can get your hands on. Get Andre Simone in there. Get the NPG, whatever configuration of the NPG you could get. Get the Revolution. Get Jill Jones in there. Get whoever you can get. Have F Deluxe turn up and and do about 2 or 3 cuts. Do it that way. If it was something like that, then I think we have an opportunity to represent, I almost hate using this word now, legacy. Let's just say representing Prince as a whole. In other words, make it a true Prince musical singularity. If you were doing something at Paisley Park and it's like, oh, this is a Prince tribute. And like I said, this is something that's being shown on Netflix. I say probably more so Netflix because, they don't have that kind of control as a network television station or major motion picture studio or television studio. This is the thing of, okay, well, who are you getting? Oh, you're getting Morris Day and the Time. Oh, you're getting, what you got, Maserati to show up? Oh, great. Do whatever you want. Here's some money. Here's a whole bunch of money. Make it happen. And then we'll put it on Netflix and we'll make $1 gazillion. We'll get, 20 million more subscribers and we're going to rule the world with that. So if it was that platform, that's one thing. But here we're talking network television. And again, this to me it's a tribute to Prince. And let's get one thing abundantly clear. For everybody has a favorite era. And music is subjective. What I like, you might not like. What you like, I might not like. And that's cool. That's a good thing. But, the criticism on the emphasis is only on the 80s. Let's make one thing abundantly clear. If it was not for that abundance of material in the 80s, there would be no 90s, there would be no 2000s, there would not be a musicology that would be your favorite record. I mean, it's my favorite record too. It's one of my favorite Prince albums. But as far as later period, it's one of my favorite later period albums. There would be no Artificial Age, which is another favorite latter period. There would be no Rainbow Children. There would be no Symbol era. There would be no Emancipation had it not been for the abundance of 80s material. And with that being said, this is network television. And it's a program that's giving a tribute to one of the greatest artists, not just of the 21st century. I mean, we get that. He was able to, not a lot of people get that type of longevity. There's a lot of acts in the 60s that they never made it into the 70s. In fact, a lot of them never made it past 1967 because when the Beatles dropped Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, hell, there's a lot of acts that barely made it out of the 50s because when they came to America, they shut a lot of American stuff down, with the exception of Motown, James Brown, and the Beach Boys. Elvis was a joke by 1964. So there's not a lot of people get to have that type of longevity, that type of staying power. Prince is definitely in the history books. 100 years from now, yeah, people are going to start rediscovering it. Lennon and McCartney, those songs will still be around 100 years from now. Stevie Wonder, those songs will be around 100 years from now. And if you take the 2009 Star Trek seriously, the Beastie Boys are going to be around 200 years from now. So, you know, it's representing that particular legacy because that's part of it. The foundation was built, and it was built to last. And when it comes to, I don't know how many millions were viewing this, but there's more millions that were probably viewing this than there actually are Prince fans. And with that being said, that's your selling point. Here's Purple Rain. This is Sign of the Times. This is Parade. This is 1999. And you can best believe, regardless of the age, regardless of race, someone is going to discover Prince for the very first time based off of this program. And it's going to spark a curiosity. And that curiosity is going to lead to whichever song or set of songs. So they're going to go on to Spotify or Tidal or Apple, and they're going to seek out these songs. They're going to seek out the albums. Depending on whatever access they'll have, and depending on when things can get back to normal and when things can reopen, they're going to go to their record store. They're going to seek out some vinyl. They're going to order some vinyl on Amazon. They're going to order some CDs, and they're going to become fans. And, us as a veteran fan base, we got to let these people in with open arms, because like I said, if this generation is discovering whatever artist, whether it's Prince, or whether it's Stevie Wonder, whether it's Marvin Gaye, whether it's Motown, whether it's the Beatles, whether it's Jimi Hendrix, Santana, Beethoven, Muddy Waters, that generation is going to carry it to the next one. And then there's going to be, it's like, you have, somebody that's probably age 10 that's a virtuoso on a violin, that's playing Mozart or, Stravinsky. There's not too many of us within this group that listen. I have like one CD of Mozart. Just one. I mean, of all the classical music, to me, it's, I've got Mozart, and then I've got the second side of Yellow Submarine, which is the George Martin orchestral score for Yellow Submarine, which is on the B side of the Yellow Submarine album. Beatles on one side, George Martin is on the other side. And as far as classical music or classical style music, that's pretty much my scope. I want to eventually get more, but anyway, I'm digressing. But it's like, here I am. Wow, when did I get that? I got that Mozart CD like 3 years ago. And then Yellow Submarine I've had since I was 12. So, there it is. So we got to accept these people with open arms, and we can't just get, all disgruntled because it's like, oh, you only like 1999. Oh, you only like Purple Rain. Give it time. That's the gateway. My gateway into the Beatles was not any one of the classic albums. It was this really cheesy compilation called Rock and Roll Music. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world at 10. But as I found out years later, that the Beatles themselves didn't want this thing released. The mixes were all wrong. The cover art was ridiculous. John Lennon offered to redesign it, and Capitol Records said no. And it's a pretty cheesy album cover, on this side. It's pretty cheesy over the UK version, but at least the mixes. But I didn't know that at 10. Like, oh, there's better mixes. But to me, those mixes are gospel. Now I get it. I've got the remastered versions. I've had UK pressings, still have some UK pressings, bought a couple of mono versions and everything. But my point being is that regardless of what age that you're in, you know, great music is great music. And it doesn't matter when you discover it or how long it's been around before you discovered it, it's still great. So that in itself is the reason why programs like this exist. And like I said, never mind my feelings on tributes and things like that. At least it serves that purpose to bring some more people into the Prince musical singularity. And then it's up to us to say, oh, well, look, you enjoyed 1999, but check out this Super Deluxe. Look what's it's got on it. Now, I mean, I was disappointed that, and you've heard me say this in previous episodes, how I wish Sony would have taken an opportunity to do a commercial for the upcoming reissues of Rainbow Children and the One Night Alone sets coming out. I wish they would have been in a position to do that. I was disappointed. I didn't see it. But if anybody did see anything, let me know. But that would have been a good representation. Like, oh, cool. We just, you just saw this program and this is the stuff that made him a legend. But check out this stuff, which helped sustain his longevity. Check that out. And that's the thing we have to be supportive of. Whether it's talking about the vault, whether it's playing vault tracks, whether it's stuff that's just now coming out from the estate. Granted, you want to, share some bootlegs, by all means, share them. That was fun for me back in the early 90s, discovering those for the first time. But it's the program, it served its purpose. Now, as far as the craziness that led up to, I don't know, it just it turned, started off as a rant, then it turned into fights about lemon cake and all this other stuff. I don't know. I mean, watching this program to me it was almost like watching Let It Be, which there'll be a reissue or a re-release or an actual DVD release of the actual movie at some point. But there's also a different documentary by Peter Jackson that shows the Beatles in a better light during that period, where the actual Let It Be film is just this miserable thing. It really shows the breaking up of a band. It's the original reality show. Really, it's the DNA of reality shows. That's how bad this is. You got, they're fighting and they're not getting along, and they're trying to make music together and they look dreadful, and the camera's always on Paul. It's always on Paul McCartney, and that was to the chagrin of the other three as it was being released. They were literally in tears. And I think Paul included, because it's like, even he recognized, God, I don't look like a nice guy in this thing. I don't look cool in this. And to me, it's almost watching that, where it's like, oh, the camera's always going to Sheila E. It's always going to Sheila E. Granted, she's the musical director of it. And in the beginning, I was cool with that because it's like, okay, at least there is some type of direct representation. It's one thing, I don't know, and I'm just pulling the name out the hat. The man's been dead for decades, but let's just say, for argument's sake, okay, we're doing a tribute to Prince and the musical director is going to be Lawrence Welk. Now, I bet you if this was 1961 or 2, that definitely would have been happening. It's like, if they were doing a tribute to Buddy Holly in 1961, oh, we got Lawrence Welk to be the musical director. Yeah, that definitely would have happened, folks. But, I get it. And I guess maybe we're used to seeing musical directors kind of being heard and not seen necessarily. But, I understand the criticism, and I've seen some of the comments regarding that. But like I said, I'm happy that there was direct representation. And it's sad that if these rumors are true, that the revolution was being blocked from this. And thank goodness there was a Jimmy Jam within the Grammy committee to have that leverage and to have that power to get them onto it and veto it. Like I said, the rumors say it was her decision to not have them on. And thank goodness that Jimmy Jam has the power to veto that. You know, but again, you know, art is it's weird with artists because we have our opinions. Because all we have really is just the music. We get these albums, and there's the packaging, and this is how they look on the record covers. We're listening to the music, and depending on the artist, especially if they write their own songs, we're under the assumption that they're laying out their lives in those songs. So because of how personal those songs are to them, and then when it comes to us, the listeners, whatever madness we're going through, and we're like, that song meant so much to me, it's like, so we start projecting our own lives into the songs, or projecting the song's lyrics onto us, or we're projecting the song's lyrics onto other people and stuff. So we kind of come away with this sort of almost near arrogance that, we know that artist better than anyone. How dare you say something bad about that artist? Oh, that guy's great. We fall into that. So when we see situations where certain celebrities are a little bit more human than what we're used to seeing them, and they kind of forget that, that we're not used to seeing you. And it's like, okay, granted, when you're not on stage or when you're not in front of the camera, you could be the nicest person in the world, or you can be the biggest jerk in the world, depending on what side of the bed you woke up on. And, I think when they're just kind of used to being normal, and we got this thing now that's almost, practically 20 years old, called social media. A lot of us, even personal, just normal folks like us, we kind of struggle with that too. I know I've said some really ridiculous stuff on this show. But like I said, we get caught up in this madness, or we get caught up in the drama. And we're more used to it now because that's all we see. We've got these, real fake housewives and Kardashians and all this other stuff running around. And, there are people that's, now that's normal. That behavior is normal now. All this, fighting and wig pulling and scratching and yelling, that's normal, and there's a lot of people that sort of imitate that behavior, but like I said, now we've got this social media, and like I said, everybody's doing it. Celebrities, ordinary folks like us are doing it. And like I said, we kind of forget, and we kind of put too much stuff out there. And I think that's something that happened with this whole Apollonia situation. Yeah, and for me, my interpretation is that there's some things in there where it's like, yeah, she had every right to gripe. Was it the perfect platform to gripe? Were you really thinking when you were putting this out there, or what was the purpose? Because now you're saying stuff like, oh, well, in my book, it's going to do this. I'm going to tell on you, everybody about this. And that makes you come off a certain way as well. And, and then we have, Sheila E., and it's like, again, it's one of those things. I remember, was it 1984? So I was about 18 when Glamorous Life came out, and it's like, there's the video, and there she is in the video, and I'm going wow, and my friends are going wow, look, check that out, and and also from there, and then the Romance 1600 album, it's right there in the title. So again, you're looking at the album cover and that's the image, and you're listening to the songs and that's the concept. And really, and even on her album covers, it's almost like being in a movie. So when you see someone in a movie acting as a certain character, or how people look at soap operas and they think that, and it's just automatic, it's that suspension of disbelief where we're buying, they're buying the performance, or a film or a TV show. You're buying the performance. And then, you're telling somebody about it and it's like, I was watching, Battlestar Galactica the other day, and then, Commander Adama, he said this to Starbuck. And it's like, well, that's Edward James Olmos. He's Adama. There's Katie Sackhoff. She's Starbuck. But, we're telling the story, and it's like, man, Adama did this, and so did. Same thing with the Sheila E. record. It's like she's projecting an image. And we bought into that image at 18 and 19 and 20. So it's like, you're like, you want to meet somebody like that image or whatever. But, the myth is bigger than reality. And, yeah, so it may come off as a bit weird, but I've seen the episode of Unsung, where it's self-admitted, there was a period where, yeah, she got the big head, she thought she was the star. She thought, it's like, what? Wait, back up. Prince is the man. He's, this is his thing. And she thought she was a little bit too big, and it was like, Prince kind of was like, I'm not dealing with that. I ain't putting up with that. I don't run that kind of a ship. So, so I can kind of see that, and I can, I wouldn't be surprised if certain aspects of that to this day, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that happens. But to put all this to rest so that Amari Purple Talk can go on and still talk about music and the Prince musical singularity, at the end of the day, that stuff didn't take away from in fact, I left all of that the minute the show started. It's like, because I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to do this review and I also want to address this madness and just give my opinion on the madness. And, I'm just a guy, but that's the whole point. We enjoy the body of work, and, we're always fascinated with celebrity, and sometimes when we pull that curtain back and find out sometimes there is no wizard, it's a bit of a letdown. I've had an opportunity to meet some idols in my lifetime, and some were the nicest people, and some were not the nicest people. But that's a part of it. It's just kind of like, but either way, it's like, they're really human. They're down to earth. They're not this image. Either way, it's just like either they're a nice person or they're not. And, the image is the image, because that's why they're in show business. Because if they were able to express themselves or express their feelings or express their politics or their religious views or whatever the way an average person would, then they wouldn't be artists. They have to, it's like they can say A, B, C, and D and it won't make any sense the way other people would say A, B, C, and D and have it make sense. But, when it's celebrity, it's like, hey, whatever issues they had growing up, or if they were introverted, this is the way they express themselves. It's like, well, I can put it in song and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or I can make this film and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But then when you stick a microphone in their face, or you put them on a talk show or a magazine or a radio interview or something, then, we tune in because we want to hear what they have to say. And then, like I said, they either come off looking pretty cool, and then sometimes they come off looking pretty ridiculous. So that's my take on it. Like I said, just take these things with a grain of salt. I'm sure if there is some negative energy, profiteering, all this other stuff, it's going to come out in the wash at some point. And, we'll take that information. If it has some relevance in our lives, cool. If it doesn't, we still got the records if we want to reminisce. And that's that. All right, so that is my review of the Let's Go Crazy Grammy Salute to Prince. And just to recap, like I said, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I didn't come away with this with a better love of tributes. I'm still not a fan of tributes, TV shows, or albums. But like I said, I enjoyed myself more than I thought I would with this one. Again, I understand why certain artists were chosen, but again, that just helps open the door to more people that aren't familiar with Prince's music or haven't tuned in since Purple Rain to kind of go back in and play catch up or get exposed to it for the first time. And like I said, we'll embrace those people with open arms, especially with this show, and say, hey, you may be a fan of 1999, but check this out. Or, you know what? If the estate puts this out, you're going to love it. So that's that. Other than that, some performances I enjoyed. Some it's just because I'm not familiar with the artists. There's some that, I'm definitely going to check out their catalog. There's some where, in the case of Gary Clark Jr., I'm telling you to check out his catalog if you're not a fan already. And if there was any drama or politics or who hates who or who's trying to expose who, and if somebody's profiteering or cashing in, that's just soap opera stuff. And I'll kind of end it on this note as well. As much of a player as Prince was, and I'm saying, it's, from a male perspective, and especially when you're a teenager and in your 20s and you're single and a bachelor, yeah, that stuff looks cool as all get out. But, when you grow up and you mature and you settle down and, you got to look back at that and say, yeah. And, a lot of you have read the books and it's like, oh, well, Sheila was here. Vanity was over here. Jill was back this way. Here's so-and-so, so-and-so. Granted, and thank goodness that he wasn't dealing with the type of women to where we would, see a Me Too situation kind of play itself out. That these were people that he knew either as friends first or, he kept it within a tight circle. So where there wasn't none of that stuff. But at the same time, if you keeping so many women in the dark like that, something like this, surprised it didn't happen sooner. And that's probably the reason for non-disclosure agreements. But at the end of the day, there's their feelings, if you imagine your feelings. And like I said, I was looking at all the different posts, people that miss him. I miss him, listen to episode 35 of Amari Purple Talk, where I sort of do my segment on the hashtag Prince to me. This was an artist whose music was literally and figuratively the soundtrack of my life, And I mean, there's other artists as well, but there's a lot of consistency. I think the difference is with some artists, it was just a few years here and there. But with him, I don't think there's barely a day that went by where an album or a certain song didn't have either an obvious purpose or a subliminal purpose in my life. So, I mean, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of emotions. A lot of us have taken a lot of different sides, whether it's taking sides with different eras, whether it's taking sides with different proteges. But let's take ourselves out of the equations. Like I said, we're just listeners. And like I said, we're victims of either projecting our views into the art or the image, or we interpret that art and that image differently, where I might see it one way, you might see it another way. But taking these individuals into consideration at any given time, they had an access that we can never imagine. There's very few other people that have shows that have had some type of contact, that have had some type of access. And their impact on a certain level is definitely not bigger than, say, my impact or your impact. But they've had an access that I have absolutely no right to comment on or devalue in a way. And that's the same thing goes for a lot of these different proteges, male and female, and yes, there's definitely lines and there's definite arguments on either side that some things sound valid, some things sound pretty nitpicky, some things sound like, okay, yeah, they were close, maybe a little too close. Some things are justified. But at the end of the day, we can't invalidate their initial feelings. Now, are they able to interpret it a certain way? No, not everybody can go write a masterpiece love song about it. And some people just don't have it poetically or eloquently to say certain things, or with tact or discretion. Sometimes we're just running off the raw emotion. And we have to kind of take that into consideration. Like I said, they've had an access that you or I can never fully imagine. We can guess, we can speculate, we can theorize, we can have an opinion. But unless we were there, we've got no stake in any of this. Like I said, our job is to go buy the records and enjoy them. And for whatever relevance that song or album has to your life, then you deal with it on that perspective. These are just people, and they have feelings. And like I said, you got so many people in different rooms and hating each other, and, maybe some of them thought they were the one. Who knows? Who knows what the deal was. But it's amazing none of this stuff came out sooner. And it's probably just because that huge void is now left, because that, with any death, it's that sudden shock of them physically not being in the picture, even if you haven't spoken to them in 100 years. It's just that now they're literally physically out of existence on a physical level. So let's just kind of leave it at that. It's like, forget about the lemon cake stuff, forget about who said what to who. I mean, granted, if somebody puts out a book, if you're curious enough, we'll go buy it, and we'll take a look and make our judgments and opinions then. But at the end of the day, you're just reading it just for the sake of entertainment, really. Or true representation, or true honest representation. Like, to me, the Morris Day book is true honest representation. Because to me, that illustrates, it represents Prince as a human being that other people are either trying to whitewash or choose not to acknowledge. But, this was a real brother in a lot of instances. And at the same time, just like any friendship, any familial relationship, there's ebb and flow, there's up and down. There's times when it's like, tight as a drum, and then there's other times it's your mama, no, your mama, and that's just human nature. We all have those dynamics. Just because they make damn good music doesn't mean that they're immune to that either. But again, unless we were there in that room when stuff was going down to where we could form an honest opinion, then hey, they've got a right to gripe. That's his best friend, or that was that person's ex-spouse, or that was that person's whoever. They've got a right to their feelings. And again, You put it in a book, who knows? Like I said, if it's honest representation, then cool. If it's, cashing in or being or exploitive or whatever, that comes out in the wash as well. But that's going to put the end on all of that. Like I said, Amari Purple Talk, we discussed the music. If it is something going on with the estate, I'd really try not to go too deep into it, but I do have opinions. I'll give reactions to songs or projects or even certain decisions. And I'll just go, nope, they got to do it the way Jimi Hendrix family does it. It works. It works. Oh, no. Frank Zappa had the idea when he was alive and his family's carrying the ball. That's how you do it. Beat those bootleggers. Put up a website. Sell the bootlegs officially. So that's the mission of Amari Purple Talk, folks. But I've gone on too long about the lemon cake gate enough, and we're putting it to rest now. And that's going to end this episode, or this very special episode of Amari Purple Talk. Again, what are your comments? What are your thoughts about it? Leave me a comment in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like this episode, like all my other episodes. Please subscribe, because I want to keep doing this and because I'm having too much fun. And as always, let's keep it purple. Oh, before I do that, don't forget, you can always find me on Twitter at RichardCole_now, and the now is in all caps. And also on Instagram at RichardCole_Amari. And now, stay healthy. Let's take care of one another. Let's be nice to one another. Great human spirit these last few weeks. As human beings, we're resilient. And we'll get through this. Never mind the crazy stuff that's going on. They're frustrated too in a lot of cases. Some are misguided, but some, they're worried. They want to eat. They got bills, and that's understandable. But let's be responsible. Let's give this thing some more time if we have to. Or if you want to start a gradual thing early, then let's still keep it at 10 people at a time, or let's keep that social distancing going. Give better respect to our healthcare personnel, our first responders out there, food service, logistics personnel, teachers that are not getting paid but still doing the grind of teaching online. Let's support them as well. So let's take care of each other. Let's take care of this planet. And let's also keep it purple and on the one.